My name is Ryley, and you are listening to the Ryley Heppner podcast.
Yeah, I'm just thinking you and I have been talking about this enough that it's like, well, we should just make it into a podcast.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be good to, I don't know how far we want to go right now besides just talking through what we're thinking and the road ahead or whatever. Mm-hmm. Kind of a primer. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, just a conversation. Don't know where it'll go or end or what, if it'll be helpful to us or anyone else, but just to talk about it.
Yeah.
My thought was if, we can only really chat about our church experiences.
Right.
Can't necessarily make big general sweeps about this is, I don't know what needs to change or whatever. But we can talk about our experiences and even more, and a part of that talking about like our feelings and trying to define those a little. Because if multiple people feel the same thing, then we should probably talk about it. Because maybe it's our thing, or maybe as more and more people feel a certain thing, maybe that's the Lord being like, let's move, let's start cleaning this up a little. I don't know.
Totally. I had those exact same thoughts. And then I wondered too, if that is the case, if you and I are even doing, like, you've already done some reading, but some research of like just asking some other pastors or people. Yeah. And then it'd be really interesting even to have, like we've talked about, having someone like Austin.
Yeah, from like a more high church model.
Or just be like, what is the model, but also what's the church history? Because he knows that. I mean, you do too, but he's
not like Austin. His knowledge of church history overwhelms me.
Yeah. Be interesting to have some guests speak through.
And from different models of church. I wouldn't say I've read intentionally about this. Yeah. I feel like I just keep reading things and the same feeling and thoughts keep coming up even from the authors. I forgot to mention that when we were just meeting with Henry, but that James K. Smith I just read had a lot to do with our conversation there. Okay. But that was the most recent book too that I read that is saying this kind of stuff. Yeah. And I didn't pick up the book being like, okay, this will help me clarify, get some clarification on 21st century worship services and stuff. But he delved into it heavily, and it was just kept blowing my mind as it connected to the things I was thinking.
Yeah, nice.
What was that called? Desiring the Kingdom.
Okay.
Particularly, he's talking about education.
Okay.
And how Christian universities should look different than secular universities, and how they should look different than Christian universities look right now, based upon what their goal is or should be. Yeah. But in that, he talked a lot about first the church and what the church should look like, and how it's meant to shape us and mold us and transform us and inform us, not unlike the university kind of be an extension of the church and stuff. Anyways, so he talked a lot about, he went systematically kind of through like the Eucharist, through praise and worship, through prayer, through preaching, through
I'll have to get that one.
All the marks of our services. And he wasn't, I guess he was pointing out like where it's wrong, but he was fleshing these things, not wrong, but where it's maybe lacking. But he was fleshing these things out too in a way that was like, whoa, I'm missing something when we celebrate the Eucharist compared to how he's explaining it there.
And that was written, when did you say?
I think 2007 maybe, or
so
quite
already,
a while ago.
Yeah, a while ago in terms of the recent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But what is the feeling that you feel that leading to the conversation that we haven't said what it is, but what we're going to have?
Yeah. I would say it's almost this like we could do better, or like we're not living out what I think the church is meant to be. So how do we do that? And what are those aspects? if you look at the church model today, what is working and what's not working.
Yeah.
Which you and I have talked about is essentially, I think, boiling down to discipleship. Like, I'm not sure that we're seeing disciples. This is the same, like, I felt that angst as like a youth pastor even.
Okay.
Being like, I'm not sure how many teenagers are coming through the church and youth group and leaving with a strong sense of discipleship and continuing on in their faith.
Yeah. So that's the factor.
Yeah.
The discipleship piece.
I think so. What would you say? I mean, it's part of the model of church. That it's like, come to church, sit down, praise and worship, hear the sermon, go. And it's like, well, nothing's really are we achieving the goals that we hope to achieve through, if that's one way to put it. But.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be a good conversation too. What is the purpose of the church? What are the discipleship obviously is a key piece.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, probably could add like community.
Yeah.
I mean, gospel community, mercy and justice.
Yeah.
Like cultural transformation of how we're affecting, like, but I mean, making disciples plays into all of that. And then maybe the banner over the whole thing is glorifying the Lord. But when I think about it and what's not working, I feel like probably every aspect of what we would define the church as feels like not really working or not.
Right.
It's not, I think there's more potential even in a broken world.
Yeah.
We could do better. Is that what you already said? Do better?
Do better.
Yeah. That's really the,
yeah.
It's not trying to say that we're failing, but that, it feels like it, the tension is like, I think there's more.
Yes.
We could do even better at this.
Yeah.
But definitely disciple mate is a huge one because I don't do that well. I don't think our church does that well.
Yeah.
I've been here 5 years now and I don't feel like we've really made disciples.
Yeah.
Or I don't feel like, I mean, we're definitely not engaged in disciple making as a body.
Right.
Like there might be one guy making
kind of on
some disciples that are like, but we're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? Maybe just to give some definition, what do you mean by the model of church? Because that's how I would say it. I don't know if you're saying it the same way. I'm like feeling like the model of church is not working.
Yeah. So when I think about that, I think through like there is, I guess it's mainly the how of church. The why of church is already given to us through Scripture, so we don't have to necessarily. I mean, we should define those things.
Yeah.
But we, as we look at it, we don't have to like bang our heads against the wall to figure out why we're doing it. But some of the function or the how of doing it now, that I think is essentially kind of left up to us today.
Yeah.
In terms of the Lord blessing, different models.
Yeah.
But the model right now, as far as I can tell from my limited perspective of just a number of churches, but of this is when church starts. These are the programs we offer during the week. And come in here, the preacher. And then even if you continue on from there, which is where I'm probably more passionate about right now, is how are the paid staff, whether pastor or otherwise, how are they treated? How do they function? I mean, that's another whole thing to look at too. Church authority kind of thing is a tough one, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When I think model, I think just like I'm thinking Sunday services especially.
Yeah.
Plus the programs, as you said, through the week, but thinking real kind of practically, like our model being we go from announcements to 20 minutes of worship to a 45-minute kind of intellectual sermon to go home.
Yep.
I mean, and the model again being the rest of the week too, the programs or the lack of programs from Monday to Saturday.
Yeah.
That church is Sunday, and then see you again next Sunday.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. I suppose the model being all of those kind of religious exercises or just, I mean, that tradition that we now kind of treat as if that's been forever. Like this is how the church always functioned.
Right.
Sunday morning, hour and 15-minute services, stage chairs.
Right.
Yeah. But the tricky piece is that as I think about that too, it'd be like, oh, our model's not working well. I also think correcting the model, as I'm talking about it, just like a practical thing, is not like, it's not like, oh, this isn't working because just this real practical element. If we switch these,
right,
now all of a sudden
we solved it.
Everyone's making disciples.
Yeah,
or like,
sure.
It's got to be, but
yeah, good point.
So I suppose that's where I'm like lost. I'm like, on the one hand, the tension feels like, well, I suppose the tension is that I believe on Sundays we're hitting the biblical marks of a gathering.
Sure.
I think that's true in the New Testament, that like we were expected to gather, to have services that were more than just like friends hanging out, that we're going to break bread and teach the word and pray together and worship together. And like, we're doing those things, and yet somehow they're not working. So yeah, how do we change them to where they're working? But also, again, the tension being like, I know that just changing them doesn't
right.
That in itself doesn't just solve everything. Like before, when we were sitting in a circle, it's like that fostered something, but it wasn't like just because we changed the shape of the room that all of a sudden everything.
Right.
Because it's still a spiritual piece, like a heart. Like,
yeah, good point.
So that's where I'm like lost. I'm like, okay, I don't know what to, I suppose especially too, because I watched the emergent church for so many years, changing models.
Yeah.
Being like, right. Hey, we're going to sit in a circle, or the worship team's going to be behind you.
Yeah.
Or
right.
We're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And like, there were probably great fruit in lots of those ministries, but it's not like we found one that was like, oh, this is what it should be, and that solved all our problems.
Right. There's a deeper issue probably then beneath the surface of that.
Yeah. Which I don't know. And going back to like why we're even saying, or that feeling of like, is there a problem? It is for me a feeling that I have on Sundays and through the week. I also think too as I see more and more people leaving the church, I'm like, is that a sign that it's not working?
Right.
On the one hand, that could be about them.
Right.
On the other hand, as more and more people leave, maybe it also is like a sign that, hey, something's not working.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe both and.
Yeah, it could be.
It can't just be all of them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Especially if they're leaving for, well, that's true too, I guess. It's not about what we're getting out of it, but at the same time, like if you're coming and not finding any gospel community or any discipleship, then you leave, and a lot of that's probably about the place you were. Some of it's on you, some of it's maybe on the church.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's important for pastors, if possible, or elders, or whatever leaders, to follow up to go, why did you leave?
Yeah.
And if the reason was, well, you didn't offer this, or this necessarily for me that I was looking for, or I was mad, or whatever, well, then it could be not necessarily something that the church really has to try to go, oh, we need to change. Now, of course, if there's toxic trauma or something crazy, then that's different too. But I think you're right. It's
like all the people that seem to leave after COVID being like, we were away for COVID, and then we felt like, well, I don't know what I'm really missing.
Yeah.
I actually have more community now with my Ultimate Frisbee group or whatever. They're like, that might be mostly you, but something is like, there might be something there that is on us.
Yep.
That we could do better.
Yeah.
At.
Well, Peterson talks about that in his memoir.
Okay.
After they had that big building project for their church, and then he noticed people that were very involved all of a sudden weren't coming.
Okay.
So he'd follow up with them personally at their homes. He'd be like, oh, you know what, Pastor? I found that I really connect well with God while I fly fish on Sunday morning. So we're fishing. And he's like, what? You know, like, that's crazy, you know? So anyway, should we just continue on, or you want to like hit record here? Are we?
Oh, I've just been recording.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're going.
Okay. Well, I think this is a time for us to wrestle through these things together with anyone else who wants to join us on the journey.
Yeah.
What I'd be interested to know is people who are listening, if they have feedback for us as well.
Yeah.
Are we the only ones thinking through this, or is there more people out there that go, yeah, something's maybe a bit off, or I resonate?
If you're watching on YouTube, though, you can't give feedback.
Well, yeah, you'll have to.
My skin's too thin. I don't allow comments.
Who needs it?
No? I don't know why. I feel like I'd rather. Yeah, I don't want to read your comments.
I support.
You could find my name and email me if you want.
I support your decision there. I mean, let's be honest. I think most people who are going to give us feedback are our friends and our family who are watching.
Yeah.
If our family watches.
But some random people always stumble across your videos and then leave wacky comments that make me then go, oh, I shouldn't do this anymore.
Yeah, that's... Well...
And then some people will be like, oh, if they don't allow comments, then I don't watch the videos. And I'm like, well, I don't care then.
Yeah.
But also I'm just like, what? There's lots of other mediums where you don't have an option just to give like immediate feedback.
Yeah.
I don't think on Spotify you can just write comments. Yeah. Nobody seems worried about that.
Yeah. That's
when I read a book, I can't just like
phone the author.
Write comments on the authors. I could find his email or something. So I don't know why the assumption on YouTube is that you have to be able to write like...
That's a trend, eh?
Comments immediately as the video is playing or...
Okay.
Or, anyways, I don't allow comments. So.
I totally I support.
Give us your feedback in some other
find us some other way, please. Let us know if you resonate with this angst. I think the other thing to clarify then too, if we haven't, is for both of us, I would say we might feel an angst, but the option isn't just to walk away from the church.
Yeah.
Obviously, you are currently employed as a pastor. I was, and we're without a church right now, but we're going to be, we still desire to have church community, and our future is being involved in a church.
Yep.
So just that the heart behind it is not to point at any congregation that we've been a part of or to pick apart anything like that, but the heart behind it is to go, could we do better? Is God calling us into something? Is there something happening that we should be aware of? And also to realize, I think you've made this point too, that you and I sitting down to talk about this and record it and share with other people, we don't have even, at least I don't, the tools just to be like, okay, I think we figured it out. But we're gonna try, or we're gonna crack into it, or just talk through it. I think
just trying to connect with people that have the same feeling that you do,
right?
Just to put it in the air, because maybe it's something, or I don't know.
Well, and the thing that I think, so you and I both raised in, really the same church, but also very similar church models or contexts.
Yep.
Where you talked about like announcements and maybe time of prayer here and there. I haven't thought a lot about other models of church, but the first one, and maybe you have a different story. The first one was actually only really Francis Chan's like letters to the churches, right? Yep. That's the one that he calls kind of for a different way. More, and I guess they're kind of doing now like home church model more. And I know obviously home church model has been around for a long time, but that was the first time where I was like, oh, okay, well there's a completely different way, because the trick is, we can't just, in my opinion, you can't just go, well, I'm abandoning church and doing church on my own, because I feel like that's not church anymore. But also if we're at a point where it's like, well, I'm not, something's got to change maybe, or I'm just feeling this angst, but I'm still going to wrestle this out in my current church context and community in my local church where I'm still there and I'm still going to continue to serve and attend, but I'm still going to wrestle this out.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think that's key to the context, because like even as we chat about this, I'm trying to figure out what could work better here, and that might not work somewhere else. Again, right. I don't think there's one model that's true for all time and all places or whatever. We're just trying to make our contexts do better, and maybe it'll help somewhere else or whatever. But that's been part of our problem too, is taking one model and applying it globally around the world. Yeah,
like you can't just. I think I should be careful quoting someone else, but I think Rick Warren had a lot of people, or like a Tim Keller.
Yeah.
Tell us your model or your formula.
Yeah.
To get like your mega church kind of thing.
Yeah, and so Keller was a big proponent of being like, particularly with Redeemer, being like, there's no model.
Right.
Like that's why I remember he said in a podcast once that like he wore suits from the beginning, and he sang traditional kind of songs, hymns, and like he said he did these things so that he would show them that, like, you know, through a more of a preaching based church, like we're going to teach truth, we're going to proclaim the gospel, and watch us multiply, and then people will come and they'll be like, how'd you do it? What's the model? And he'll be able to kind of point to his suits and the hymns and all these things that are kind of anti-church growth and be like, see, there's no model.
Yeah.
We're just preaching the gospel, making disciples, and like, yeah, because there's no, the New Testament doesn't give us one model, and so who are we to impose our model? And I don't know. Again, you said context. I think that's key. Figuring out what works here. Like sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask two questions before? Sure. Is this a quote? One is he did write Center Church. Mm-hmm. Very big, like textbook.
Yeah.
That was on some level. I didn't read the whole thing, but that's on some level kind of a model, or
I wouldn't say it was a model. I think it was extracting like the values.
Yeah. Okay.
Of Redeemer, and I think as he saw these are the values of like the church. Like, this is how a gospel-based church, like, I mean, that was the center church. I mean, his theme was drawing people back to where Jesus is at the center. The gospel is at the heart of the church, and then watch how it transforms culture and transforms communities and transforms this and that. And he wasn't organizing it, being like, here's how we do worship. Here's how we do the Eucharist. Here's how we do the word. Other than being like showing how the gospel's got to be at the center of all those things.
Okay. Then my second one, you pointed to this, we can circle back to it later, but you had mentioned the New Testament doesn't give us a model.
Not that I...
which I agree with. And I think, I remember it was probably the early 2000s where there was a really big push for like, well, we're going to do house church because that's the New Testament model. But then some people came later to be like, that was the model because they had to.
Yeah, like a necessity.
Yeah, because then they didn't want to get tortured or killed. So we can't necessarily take 2,000 years ago what they were doing. Not to say that you can't, but that was kind of the fad.
And then as they grew, I'm sure they found buildings that could fit them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it was kind of like we could meet in church houses too, because we could fit in houses.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Not to say house church model is this email I just got this morning from Gospel Coalition.
Oh, okay.
And it was a story, and they were like, in 2022, I visited a church movement in Peru that defies traditional church growth.
Okay.
Iglesia Genesis has 37 small groups, each continuing to grow and split off into more groups. The church introduces about 40 new people, mostly teens, to Jesus each month, and their Sunday night worship services is standing room only. I don't know. It goes on. But it was just like, there's a model that's working great in that area in Peru.
Right.
Might not work here. Maybe it would.
Yeah.
They're not writing it trying to be like, this is what everyone should do.
Yeah.
But to everyone be thinking through like, oh yeah, what could we do to make it work even better? Maybe that would work. I think my key to, thing to say is that I'm going into this, not this conversation, just these thoughts and wrestling in general, not even thinking we're doing anything like bad. I just like in a positive way. I just want more.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't want to hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
I want to be like, oh, I think we can, again, like we can make disciples even more efficiently, or like we can have more of Jesus, and we can enter more into God's presence in worship, and like we can be transformed more in communion, and our community can be more united. And I'm like, it's not a negative thing. I'm just like, I think we've hit a ceiling, and how do we blow that ceiling off?
I like that because I think. Oh, did I cut you off?
Nope.
I like that because I think the tendency is just to be critical of church or whatever, even as pastors or ministry leaders, just be like, it's not working, I don't like it, or whatever. But that's not the heart here. And I was just reading last night about this, but the author I was reading was talking about Bill Belichick, the football coach,
Patriots,
and how the reason why he was so good was because he was very passionate about football, but he always was asking, apparently, what is working and what is not working for football, or for like teams and coaches. And that's what he had. I think he had actually a small group of other coaches where they would just talk about that.
Okay.
And that's all they would do. Similar to, you and I kind of doing this too, go, there's something, we're very passionate about church, what's working, what's not, but how, where is it going, and how do we drive change if that's needed, or focus more in on an aspect that we need to, or whatever that might be. So, one of the things I was, you pointed to though as well is perhaps something that we should define from the forefront is this, what is the actual. Oh, okay.
That's okay. This one was recorded.
Continue on.
Yep.
Good thing you had a backup.
Yeah. Let me. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Maybe do a clap to know where I am.
For all of our listeners, you're getting the real raw.
Turned one camera on, not the second one.
Right.
And now we're good.
Okay. So just what are those? I know we've talked about this before, and we don't need to spend a ton of time on it right now, just as our first kind of episode in this series of episodes that we might wrestle through. But when is something considered a church, and when is it no longer a church?
Yeah.
So what I think sometimes people will do, and this is where you and I would certainly agree, that this is no longer a church if you just leave your church that you were a part of and say, well, my church now is meeting with maybe even just a couple people, but maybe alone, watching a sermon online, which is now more available than ever, worshiping with whatever worship band that I can find, reading my Bible, praying. All things those are good, but I don't think that's church. So give me some of those, what we would say the bare essential marks of like, well, this is church now, and the model can change, but the why, I guess, or the
I feel like I think there is reason biblically to say that the church is, like, as Francis Chan's thing says, like, we are the church.
Like, right. Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
But at the same time, there really were in the New Testament, like, the church gathering.
Yes.
So the church services. So I mean, to say we're going to church, I don't know. I feel like people always hate, but it made some sense too. Like we really are also talking about gatherings.
Yeah.
And kind of formal gatherings, like Paul tells Timothy to appoint elders. I mean, like there really was structure. Yeah. So I don't think that's like a thing that we just made up in the last century. Like it, thing just got kind of orchestrated us to, or organized the church to gather in kind of official ways where there really was leadership and delegation and tasks and things. In terms of marks, I mean, Mark Dever, I feel like really unpatched it well, and I forget what all of his are, but I always just think Acts like 2:42 in that passage to be like, and this is how I've kind of formed services here, being like, okay, they taught what the apostles were teaching, like they taught the word of God, preached it. They prayed and worshiped together. They broke bread, which I think was fellowship and communion.
Sacraments.
I mean, the word, the Eucharist, the community, the worship and prayer. Like, I feel like at a bare minimum, that's the church. Yep. And say bare minimum, I mean, not that they're, maybe there shouldn't even be more, because I think one of our problems is we usually overcomplicate it. Sure. But I think it's that simple, that church hits those key pieces, or church services. And some of the marks through history too have been like that church discipline is a mark of the church, which kind of throws back to there being leadership and organization. And so I think at the bare minimum, again, those things taken together equal the church, or I don't know how to say it, a church, the church gathering,
community.
And I can't do that on the ski hill.
Right.
As great as it is to just go enjoy skiing and mountains and community, and like, that's maybe an extension, or it could be an extension of the church, but that gathering, I think has those key elements to it.
So then I would say, and I agree with you, I would say then what we would both probably agree to then is most church gatherings are meeting those. It's not like we are looking out and being like, oh man, like this church doesn't even talk about the Bible. Or this church isn't baptizing or even doing communion ever, or whatever. Most churches are, it's pretty straightforward in the sense, like you said, it's pretty simple or whatever. They're meeting those. But we are still seeing like, okay, well, shouldn't we see more people coming to know Jesus? Shouldn't we see more people like, just that discipleship piece, and where are we failing people as leaders, or whatever that might look like? And that's what I would love to think through more as we go forward.
I mean, to some degree, I feel like services aren't going to be the things that like just bring people to the Lord.
Sure.
Some people would see it differently, being like the service is for the unbeliever. I think the services can be evangelistic in people attending, but I think it's very believer focused in us worshiping and preaching and Lord's Supper and these things. But I think it should have the power that as we gather, the experience of that and being in the Lord's presence together in those ways sends us out with a courage and a courageousness and a boldness and a passion to go make disciples. So if people aren't going out making disciples, is there something, as Comer said, underwhelming about our gatherings that isn't like doing what it, or at least doing the getting close to the fullness of what it should be doing. Like, people just kind of, again, religious exercise, check it off the box, go home, and nothing really happens Monday to Saturday. That's the problem too, is like we're doing those things that I see in Acts, but I'm like, but what's not working? I'm like, on the one hand, I've been thinking, and I'm planning to teach through this in the next couple months, literally teach through or unpack, I guess, with people, like each part of our service, so there can be a deeper theology in people's minds of what we're even doing. So I think we can surf through communion really quick and nobody have any idea. Like, our hands know what they're doing, but we don't really have any idea of what we're participating in, like the weight of it. So I've been thinking like, oh, maybe that's a piece. Getting back to, maybe that would refresh things again, getting back to like, what is even happening between us and the Lord in worship? What are we doing, and what is he doing in response, or to to even bring us into a spirit of worship, or what is actually happening as we preach the word. Because if we don't really understand what those things are doing, then are we kind of doing nothing? Or
yeah. And
you think that's
I think you're
just understanding them could be any piece of it?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're hitting a couple things, because I had similar thoughts around, if I work out an hour every day and do my CrossFit workout and stuff, it's very helpful, but actually more of my physical health growth happens outside of that 1 hour that I have at the gym. But the gym is essential, for the whole piece. But how I eat, what other, health choices I make. If I do a 1 hour workout and then go sit in the couch and watch TV all day, that's not good for my physical health. On and on and on. So I like the idea that you're bringing up of like the gathering time, and then how that should just excite us or embolden us for the rest of the week of what we're supposed to do. And so what is missing at that part? And one of the metaphors that I've heard that I always enjoy, when people say, oh yeah, the Lord doesn't speak to me, or I don't hear from the Lord, it's like saying, I want to see the stars at night, but I stay in my basement. Yeah. So it's like, okay, you need to put yourself in a posture that can receive. It's not always a guarantee to hear from the Lord. And just as if you want to see the stars at night, well, it's probably best that you are out at night for one, that you're outside, that you look up, those kind of things. And in the same way, if you want to hear from God, well, be silent, be in the Word, talk with other Christians. So are we setting up on a gathering time, a posture that lends itself towards that end, if that makes sense? And that's where I think I want to continue to wrestle with. So, yeah.
I thought this is from James K. Smith.
Oh, cool.
From that book that I read. Maybe I already sent this to you too. But this was, I thought, a good thought as I was wrestling with this stuff and thinking through models, and this being like a reassuring, like, oh yeah, no, as you're saying, like Sundays are important.
Yes.
He's like, first of all, the amount of time spent in Christian worship on Sunday mornings is limited. It is nonetheless both dense and charged. Intentional Christian worship that includes the elements we described above, that draws upon a holistic tradition of worship that activates the whole body, is packed with formative power. In addition, we must remember that intentional Christian worship will always put us in the way of God's nourishing grace through the particularly charged practices of the sacraments, the Word, baptism, and the Lord's Supper. Given the Spirit's unique presence in the sacraments, we ought not to underestimate the power of even a relatively brief encounter with the transforming triune God. I feel like that was kind of saying what you were saying already. Right. Like, you got to put yourself in the way.
Yeah.
And that happens on Sunday mornings. Even if it's not happened perfectly, that's what we're doing. That's what we're gathering for. Even if we move too quickly through all those pieces, don't underestimate what the Lord can do. Yeah. And that it made me think of, I read a book a while ago called The Korean Pentecost, which was all about like the revival in Korea, like 100 years ago or whatever it was. And one of the guys, when they started gathering, he wrote like, we're gathering basically to pray and to preach. And he wrote, we weren't expecting anything, I think he said, like abnormal or supernatural to happen. We're just like, it's very simple and plain. We're just gathering to worship and pray and read the Word. And then out of that, the Lord did these crazy supernatural things to where like,
largest church in the world.
Yeah. Korea's like overflowing now with believers and passionate believers and disciple making. And it just came out of pretty simple activities. Like we're like what we do on Sundays. We're just gathering to pray and worship. And so on the one hand, I have to remember that and like, okay, don't underestimate what's happening there. It can seem just routine and whatever, but it's intentional and it's we're putting ourselves in the way of God's power.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to studying wrestling more, talking through this with you. Hopefully others. Maybe we get some guests on the show.
Yeah.
Get some other voices contribute here.
Yeah, that's a good call.
But as I read things like Letters to the Church or this isn't necessarily a church model book, but Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer, where he's calling to those simple practices, nothing new. I go, there's something there that resonates with me that I want to investigate more. So yeah.
Cut her off there.
Whatever
until part 2.
Yeah,
okay. What time is it? 11:25.
Unless you got more you want to add.
Oh, I got lots of questions, but we can save it for
whatever
the
you
next
figure.
one. Just kind of intro here.
Yeah, I mean, what do you got? Let me take a look.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's continue on part 2 next time.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually am have a call this week or next week with the We the Church guys.
Oh,
in
okay.
San Francisco.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.